All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Luke Moon. I am the executive director of the Philos project, and this is Luke Moon Reacts to Stuff. Yeah, that's what, well, right this second I'm calling it. And this week, you might have seen on the news all the stuff going down with the pro-Hamas rallies in Columbia University, Yale. It seems that these Ivy League universities have become, as other people are saying, poison ivy. I love that. That's kind of funny to me. So, and you know how poison ivy gets. You get it on you, and it just starts itching, and it itches for a long time. So that's where we're at. The American public is got the poison ivy itches, and they're coming out of the Ivy League universities. These are private institutions that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and American tax dollars are going to these universities as well. Now, I got to say, if I was a student at one of these universities that was not camped out in the quad or whatever with the tent and the signs and the kafiyas and I'd be like, you guys are messing with my reputation here, because I I I can't, as a good American right now, I can't imagine supporting anybody who's going to Columbia. If they're not speaking up against this, it's like silence is complicity or something like that, right? And so I think it's important that we are very clear about where we stand in relation to these institutions that are clearly churning out rashes. So with that, let me get to I'm going to show some videos, some clips to get people up to speed with what's going on, and I'm going to react to them. It's the reaction video. And the first one I got, here we go. All right, so these are some this is the encampment. This one's at Columbia. It is you can hear in the background of that Allah Akbar, the basically the call to prayer taking place. A lot of these students who are part of this, a bunch of them are Muslim. Actually, what I hear is that a bunch of them are Jewish as well. I don't know how many are Christians, but they're all behaving terrible either way, because they have taken over they've taken over Columbia University. Now, since they set this up, this has been taken down. It was taken down for a few days. Columbia University is a private institution. You have to have card to be able to get into the campus. And they started to lock down who could come in. They started to say, some professors were actually one professor yesterday was blocked out from being able to enter the campus. The excuse given was to protect his safety. They weren't sure if they could protect his safety from the Hamas allies on campus that have taken over. It's kind of insane, right? All right, so there's that one. Let me get one more, and then I will.
Keep it moving, your Zionist bitch. Keep it moving, your Zionist
We are Hamas!
You're Hamas, wow. That's a good one. You're what? You're Hamas?
Yes, we're all Hamas, pig!
I'm Hamas!
Fuck you! Get our face!
All right, that goes on and on. It's so infuriating to me to watch that. This is right here in New York City. One of the largest Jewish communities in the whole United States is here. And you have these people who are celebrating Hamas. Now, I'm sure that most of you who are watching this know what Hamas is. But if you don't, I'll tell you. Because Hamas is a terrorist organization. is recognized by the United States, a bunch of other countries around the world as a terrorist organization. They are part of the Muslim Brotherhood kind of association of organizations. The Muslim Brotherhood came about really around the turn of the century, last century, because there was a lot of poor working class people who were just suffering at the hands of, well, the British actually, who were controlling the Suez Canal, and there was a lot of poverty. Now, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, along with kind of his let's call it his spiritual mentor, they both ended up going to the United States, becoming one of them in particular. Kitab is his last name. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that's how I say it when I read it. So he ended up being at a university in the United States, and what kept him getting invited to come to dances and do all this sort of stuff. And he was so bothered by the decadence that he saw that he was like, America needs to be destroyed. And he goes back to Egypt, and he begins to organize and get people to oppose the West and what the West was contributing to the rest of the world. He became basically the spiritual advisor. It's called a spiritual advisor for the founding of the Muslim Brotherhood. So when he was doing his, like, talking about all this stuff, one of the things they decided to do was to center the activities of Hamas, or the Muslim Brotherhood at the time. It wasn't called Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, center them at the mosque, meaning they were going to provide basic services, education, after-school program, healthcare programs, stuff for widows and orphans, that kind of thing, right? Center them at the mosque. And as a result, they became very strong, particularly among the working class people in Egypt, to the point that it became very problematic that the ruling class saw, and that had to shut them down, made them illegal, actually. And they were have been illegal in Egypt for a very long time. So Hamas did the same thing when they came into Gaza. They centered a lot of programming around the mosque, after school programs, care for the poor, care for like foods pantry kind of thing, basic medical care, stuff for widows and orphans. It basically took the page out of the missionary playbook and oriented the educational content, though, was towards an anti-Israel, in this case with Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-Western system completely. Like Allah is the way. There's, jihad is awesome. I'm saying that all wrong. I mean, but that's the essence in a lot of ways of what Hamas stands for: the destruction, the removal, the end of Israel as it exists. Because there's a saying amongst jihadis, first Saturday people, then Sunday people. The other thing is the world is divided into two parts: Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harar, right? Sea of Islam, which is like the lands of Islam, and the Sea of War. Like, if you're not in the Sea of Islam, then you're in the Sea of War. And once a place becomes part of the Sea of Islam, it can never return. It's always part of Islam. That's why there's a bunch of Islamic terrorist organizations that want to retake Spain, right? Because the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal, was under control of Islam for a long time. If you were and it was the center of learning for a long time, actually. If you were a famous, a wealthy Parisian family, you wanted to give your kid a good education, you actually sent them to Spain to study under the Muslims. That was in that period. That period, ended 1492. The Spanish kicked out the Muslims, and the Jews. But it was the Muslims were the majority group that they were focused on. Just so happens Jews were kind of caught up in that. So here's where we are. Years later, we're talking centuries later, you still have this group called Hamas, terrorist organization, recognized they have taken control of Gaza. October 7th, they brutally attack Israel and killed 1,200 people, took a bunch of people hostages. Currently, there are still 133 hostages under Hamas control. Hamas is, as of last week, recording that they don't know if they can find 40 who are still alive, which is not helpful. And here you have students at a university in New York City aligning themselves with Hamas. One more thing. These people who are doing this, they've gone from ceasefire, calling for an end to the war, the bombing. A bunch of them early on were saying, like, we're standing, nonviolent. We recognize that atrocities were committed. And we've gone from that to we are all Hamas, right? It's like going from like the whole argument of, I'm pro-choice to being pro-abortion. That's where we're at. We're in that phase right now, right? Going from, listen, we want to end violence to we want to kill you, Jew. That's what's going on in campuses in America right now. Show you another video here. All right. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that there is this unity of destroying the Israel flag and the American flag together, right? There is the representation of, like, America's kind of a contributor to this. Obviously, we send weapons to Israel to help them defend themselves and fight back against this terrorist organization. But it's more ideological than that, right? We are in this point where there is a unity between, call it the red and the green, right? The unity of the Marxists and the Islamists. And I was talking to a rabbi friend of mine recently, and he was saying that Edom represents the pagans, and you could add the Marxists to the pagans. And obviously, Ishmael represents the Muslims. And when they come together, they form the spirit of Amalek. And there was a lot of, consternation towards, a month or so after the October 7th started, where there was a lot of kind of people talking about and referencing Amalek. People were having a hard time with that, right? Because it is a biblical reference. And it's a biblical reference to like when the Israelites were wandering in the desert on their way to the promised land. The Amalekites attacked them from behind and took out the women and children. Attacked the women and children. They basically, went for the weak in the society. And same thing happened in October 7th. Like, they went after the women and the children, brutally attacked them. And so, to me, like, it's not a big stretch to appeal to some of these biblical images like Amalek, right? Because the spirits, they continue, right? They're in the New Testament. It says we do not war against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers in heavenly places. Like, these idea that we are warring against more than just the physical. And if you're a Christian and you're kind of engaging in this conversation, in this space, and you're not looking at Scripture and thinking about this in terms of Scripture, you are missing like half the story, because this is very much a spiritual story as much as it is a physical story taking place in real time now. So let me get to this next section here. This video coming up is from Yale, in another poison ivy school. Give the itchies, right? As we're up against here.
Does give you like no authority.
All right, what did you see in that video? That was basically a bunch of people who were standing arm in arm, preventing the Jewish student from entering campus. Right. So you have a guy who is dressed in traditional Jewish. He has a Jewish hat and things like that. Obviously Jewish. And then you have him being confronted and prevented from entering by a bunch of other students. Now, there was this is a very unsettling transition. Again, we have transitioned from, the rallies, you guys, the rallies started October 8th, basically. We helped organize one of the first rallies in New York and also in Washington, D.C. And there were rallies in New York and Washington, D.C. already on October 8th, calling for a ceasefire, calling for, celebrating what had happened, that Israel had been attacked and Israel had been defeated. And I had Jews who called me up on October 7th and October 8th that felt also defeated. And it took a bit for them to get back to where they felt like they were they were winning again. But it was very clear that in those early days that there was already stuff going on, stuff being prepared, well equipped, had talking points, had materials ready to go, and this was not, it came out of nowhere. Now we've gone from the calls for ceasefire to, like I said before, the celebration of Hamas, the celebration of what Hamas did on October 7th, the ongoing attacks against Israel from the north, from Hezbollah, but also, calls for celebrating when we'll kill another soldier, right? Like that's the kind of thing that the stage we're at. I'm old enough to remember Bill Clinton's affirmation of being pro-choice, and for him it was, legal and rare, right? To the period that we're in now, where there is a, call it almost a celebration of abortion, and people self-identifying as pro-abortion. So we're in that phase. For me, I actually think the two issues are related. I am pro-life and I'm pro-Israel. And the reason that I'm that is because I think life is you get the basics of life wrong, you get a bunch else wrong. The two things that the UN hates above all else, babies in the womb and Israel. And I think those are related because first command of God to the world, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. And then the agents of bringing that knowledge into the world was the Jewish people, right? So the enemy hates babies and he hates Israel. And so if that's what the enemy of God hates, then I hate those two things. I stand with babies in the womb and I stand with Israel. I make that choice. Now, so here you have this guy being blocked at a school, Yale, an Ivy League school, but it's not unsimilar to something that happened a long time ago. And let me show you what I mean by that. This is from X, from formerly known as Twitter. Here is a picture of Nazis in 1938 who are blocking students from entering a university. What's the difference here? Nothing. Okay. That spirit, people have said, oh, you can't defeat an ideology. You can't defeat an idea. And in some ways, you can't ultimately. Like it's an idea is in people's heads, but it manifests itself in different ways over time. So the spirit of Nazism was not destroyed in Germany. The Third Reich was destroyed, but the ideology of Nazism was not destroyed. Before October 7th, we spent a lot of time tracking and fighting and arguing against white supremacists, the neo-Nazis. We held our counter demonstrations. I'm the proud recipient of a 20-minute attack video posted by the Goyim Defense League against me. That's one of my great moments in life, that the neo-Nazis hated me. And then October 7th happened, and basically the 10 neo-Nazis hanging out in their mom's basement are dwarfed by the hundreds of I would call it Nazi sympathizers who are now camped out at places like Columbia or blocking students at Yale. That is what the ideology continued, right? It's the same thing. And perhaps there are some that will come against me and challenge me on that, but I'm happy to have that debate every day of the week. That to me is one of those things that's evident of where we're at this moment in time. So let's move on to my next point.
That's target. That's fine. Let her cross it. That's fine. No.
So that the song being played in the background is the Israel national anthem. There's a group of Jewish students who are celebrating themselves, Israel, the Jewish people, and this is what comes out as a result.
Ain't no way that says that.
It's crazy, right?
Ain't no fucking way.
Now, I don't know if you saw that video very clearly, and I apologize for the poor language used by these students, but no surprise, right? Like that the people who are calling for the destruction of the Jews also might swear. But what you have here in this video is a young woman holding a sign that says,
Really?
let me get back to it. Al-Qassam's next target. Okay. And she has it with an arrow pointing behind her. Behind her, like I said, was a group of Jewish students who were standing with American flags and Israel flags and playing the Israeli national anthem. Now you're like, well, so what, Luke? What's Al-Qassam? Al-Qassam is the armed wing of Hamas. So Hamas has, two primary wings. One is the let's call it the governmental, the people in charge, and then they have the armed wing. And so the armed wing is called Al-Qassam, the Al-Qassam brigades. Now, the Al-Qassam brigades have tons of support. There was a survey that I'll put in the link that was taken in I think November, that showed, we're talking after the war had started, support for the Al-Qassam brigades in Gaza was over 80%. And in the West Bank, also over 80%. and support for Hamas was like 60%. And why is that? Well, it's because, you know, the Hamas librarian sucks, but we're going to stand with the fighters. That's what that says. And so you have a woman here, a young woman. She's not even Arab. This young woman that's pictured here, she has an Italian last name. So yeah, it's quite shocking to me that she's standing there with that. But it shows the level of indoctrination that has occurred on these campuses. You know, when she got accepted into Columbia, she was probably really excited. And her parents were also really excited to send their kid off to Columbia. She made it into an Ivy League school. She probably worked really hard in high school and did all the right stuff. And here she is celebrating a terrorist organization, the armed wing of a terrorist organization. You're deep in the weeds when you wrap yourself in a keffiyeh and are celebrating the Al-Qassam brigades. You are way deep, okay? And you have it's a cult. We're in like Jonestown right here, folks. These are proper nut jobs. I can't imagine what their parents must feel, right? And I can't imagine what it must feel like to have sat in a classroom with one of these people. Because if you sat in a classroom with a like a neo-Nazi, one of these guys who is like who's out and out neo-Nazi, right? He's got, I don't know, maybe he has a swastika tattoo, or he wears the like white power t-shirt or something, right? Like the students in their same class wouldn't even tolerate that stuff, right? But here you are, someone calling for supporting terrorist organization that has murdered thousands of Jews. That's a whole new level, man. That's a whole new level. And if I was a student, another student there that was, I don't know, biochemistry major, and not at all, I'm more concerned about, the basketball team and the other activities around, or not even that interested in that stuff. You're just trying to get an education so you can get a good job. And you have this chick who's ruining the reputation of your school. I mean, listen, it takes a long time to build a reputation. And the reputation of Columbia took a long time to build. And then here we are watching it being destroyed before our very eyes. And it's not just this one. It's Yale and Harvard and MIT, and they're all getting, I would rather hire somebody from Podunk University in Podunk, Ohio, than anybody in these coming out of these places, right? That's my attitude right now, because as far as I can tell, everybody is okay with this. There's, I don't know how many students, 30,000 there at Columbia, and you got 200 kids who are doing this stuff. They are ruining the reputation of 30,000 people. But guess what? It never takes everybody to ruin a reputation of a place, right? No more than 5% of Germany ever joined the Nazi Party. Right now, no more than 10% of Chinese are part of the Communist Party. No more than 3% of the South ever owned slaves. But guess what? All of those places are ruined by that super minority. So yeah, you have 1-2% of the student body at Columbia has embraced this. I mean, there's others that are saying it's a lot more. I mean, maybe it's a quarter of the student body. Well, heck, if a quarter of the student body is embracing this ideology, it's time to shut it down. It's over. It's over. It's over. That academia bubble is popping. It's gonna pop. It's gone. This makes me the most angry. So I got another one here. Another Al-Qassam rally here person. All right, give it the stage. If you can't hear what they're chanting, Al Qassam, you make us proud. That's what they're chanting over there. That is again properly nuts. And the other thing I think should happen, just be public policy oriented a little bit, and kind of what can the average person do? If any of these people are on student visas from another country, and they're advocating for a terrorist organization, they should be not only suspended, they should be expelled and lose their student visa and sent home, because it is actually illegal to support terrorism. It's illegal in the United States as a person with a foreign visa to be supporting a terrorist organization. And this is not that calling for the destruction of Israel and the Jewish people, which is what's being called for, is not that's not protected speech, and these people are not citizens. So it doesn't, they need to be sent home, and we need to get some examples of that. Those need to get published and put on media, and then every mom in if you're a mom in Cairo and you see your daughter chanting Al Qassam, and she is supposed to be studying communication, mass communication, instead she's chanting Al Qassam, celebrating Al Qassam brigades, celebrating Hamas. That mom's gonna better call up that daughter and be like, hey, we sent you over there to get an education, not to attack the Jews. Right? Focus, honey. That kind of thing. I mean, but maybe it's not just, maybe the mom's not in Cairo, maybe she's in Paris, France. I don't know. Either way. And then anybody else, all these people who are on the professors who are not citizens, who are on work visas, maybe they're on green cards, all those can get taken away. It's illegal to support terrorist organizations as when you're here on a visa in the United States. And I look forward to watching the reports roll out listen, I have no faith in New York or Connecticut that the governor or anybody else has the willingness to do that. But I do expect, in places like Tennessee, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, those governors to step up and lead on this, and have some of those students work to have some of those students removed, particularly in some of these in these places where the leadership of the state is more clear-eyed about the threat of anti-Semitism, not only metastasizing on the left and on the right, but also moving beyond just some tent, compounds in these insane universities. All right, so this is where we're at, and we have students who are being attacked left and right, and it's important that we stand up. But let me be clear, as a Christian, I think Christians need to begin to mobilize. Okay, like I know a ton of people who are active on social media. They are always putting out tweets. They're speaking around the country at different conferences and telling everybody who agrees with them, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to think. Here's how you need to but those people need to be mobilizing people to stand up physically, okay? Because we need to show a different show of force, meaning like I'm not calling for violence. What I'm calling for is a bunch of Christians to show up at these places. Maybe we do worship and prayer events and that kind of thing all over these cities, all over these communities, all over these campuses. And the Christian organizations that are on these campuses, you want to step out and be truly bold witnesses to Christ. Then why don't you show up and stand in friendship and solidarity with your Jewish neighbor? Like walk with them, escort them. A group of Christians start escorting the Jewish students around campus, right? Like that is because you wouldn't even be a Christian if it wasn't for a Jewish man named Jesus. Okay. And God still has a plan and purpose for the Jewish people. He's not done with them yet. And so you might as well get on board with that because it's biblical. It's in the Bible. I can unpack it for you if you need. But I think it's important that we as Christians begin to show up, to mobilize, to it's not enough. I'm done talking. I'm done with like, hey, let's reach out to 5 influencers and get them to do something and like tweet or post on Instagram reel or whatever. All that's good. But if nobody's showing up, it's not enough, guys. It's not. You have to show up. We have to step up because they're not going to stop with the Jews. And like in a lot of these places, all over the Middle East, they didn't stop with the Jews. You think they're going to stop with the Jews here? No. And like in Canada, how many churches are being burned? Right? Tons of churches are being burned to the ground every week. Why? Because there's the Christians are weak. They're a weak minority now, right? They went for the Jews first. The Jews are like the amount of anti-Semitic stuff happening to the Jews in Canada is massive. It doesn't make it to our media very much, but it's significant. Okay, and then churches are getting burned to the ground. And it's it's the pagans and the Muslims coming together there too. Spirit of Amalek, and we have to wake up. We have to wake up. And again, I'm not calling for violence. We do not wage war as the world does, but we have to wake up to what's going on, and we have to mobilize, and we have to have boots on the ground in America, all over America, showing America their roots. Okay, because we were formed as a Christian nation. You know that like. The people who came across in the Mayflower, they read Hebrew. They knew the Hebrew Bible. You want to like the Hebrew Bible is the source for how you build a nation. Okay. The New Testament deals mostly with interpersonal relationships, right? Like husbands love your wives, fathers don't exasperate your children, deals with the relationship between employee, employer. At the time it was slave and master, right? Like it's talking about so much of it is interpersonal relationships, but the nation building part comes out of the Hebrew Bible. And so when you have people who are looking to the Bible to build a nation like America, what did they do? They read what Christians often refer to as the Old Testament. I use the Hebrew Bible, but that's where they got the source. And we have to wake up to this. It doesn't come from nowhere. These are our roots. And the other factor is that we have the truth. We have the truth and understand reality in a world that has lost its way on both. And so let's be bold. Let's stand up and recognize that it's, in places like this, like I'm telling you, what's so frustrating oftentimes is there's a lot of principle often taught to Christians in churches. And we're really good at applications of like 10 ways to be a good dad, or 5 ways to get more out of your relationship with Jesus Christ, right? But when it comes to the moment we're in and the application of like what should you do, obviously don't sin, and love your wife and love your family more and read your Bible more. All that's good, but it. Why did the apostles get run out of towns in the book of Acts? Because they were preaching the gospel. That's why. Not because they were saying they were like, it wasn't, it wasn't 10 steps. It wasn't the 5 steps to a better relationship with your wife. How to love your kids more. That's not what they were talking about. I mean, maybe they did. I mean, maybe that was the Wednesday night Bible study conversation. But when they were out on the streets, they were bold, fearless. And I'm looking for men and women across this country who want to be bold and fearless. Because I am so tired of being, I will often find myself, I'll go to these rallies where I have a flag. It's half American flag, half Israel flag on the same flag. And I'll go stand with my flag, and I'm often the only Christian. 95% of the time, I'm the only Christian. And sometimes I'm the only one. There was one recently where I was, there was about 20 Jews and me, standing down about 600 Palestinian activists, Hamas activists. And I'm tired of doing that. And I really want Christians, people who watch this, to say, Luke, listen, I'm with you. I'm tired of watching this too. What do it like? Put me in, coach. What do I do? Let me tell you, join the Philos Action League is one thing. It's up on our website. It lets us know where you are, so that we can, when something happens, when something goes down, we can call you up and say, hey, it's happening near you. Come, let's go. Listen, most of these things don't don't be afraid, right? God has not given us a spirit of fear, right? So let us be bold and demonstrate to the whole world that we're more than just talk on X and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. We're more than that. We are going to be bold and courageous. And because we live in a moment where the spirit of Amalek, the old pagans, I don't know if like that's what we're up against. So, and we know how that story ends, because it was once that before, right? So we can go back, read the book of Acts, and see what they did, how bold they were, and how they pushed back against the idol worshipers. And we'll be bold again. But I need you Christians to be bold and stand up right now in this moment. Okay. That's enough. I've gone too long. Thank you for sticking around, and I'm excited to keep this rolling. This is Luke Reacts to Stuff, and I'm Luke Moon. I'm with the Philos Project. See you next time. Thanks.